Hello there guys, and welcome back to the channel. So in today's video we're going to be talking about AW showcase, right and left side, basically the team that I used, how it went, and general other substitute options for it. So obviously right side is going to go the harder side, where we do have just about every fight with a tactic defender, and left side is going to go the easy side. So we're going to start with the right side. We're going to tackle it straight on. So White Tiger is effectively just a warm-up fight to remind you of the tactic and the fact that, you need a lot of debuffs basically to get that passive heal block on at all times in order to prevent miss and bypass that power gain. Tons of champions can work there. You do want to kind of avoid champions that do have lots of buffs if they rely on dot, because White Tiger will start to purify them. But other than that, Luke Cage, Cassie Lang, Deathless She-Hulk, Count Nefarious, Silk, there's like multitude of options, and the fight itself is quite easy. No real notes there. Now Dust is the tricky one. Dust is what a lot of people kind of struggle with, and trust me, I know the pain. Initially, when I had to learn this fight in AW, this was one of the jinxiest fights I ever had. I either did it perfectly or I died to it sometimes more than once, and it was just awful. So Ironheart is by far the best count. With Ironheart, you can kind of play it normally. With basically, you do want to start the fight with Dexing, activating your level 1 due to the power start 1, and then Dexing again, and then you can parry her freely. And as long as you pay attention to the power thing when you cross the combo of 10, and as long as you do not miss a parry, it's going to be like a vanilla Dust fight. Otherwise, you're going to deal with unblockable Dust and lots of mean and evil things. Alternate options there are Lady Deathstrike, Silk and Morbius can do that fight, Deathless She-Hulk, Cassie can do that fight as well, Omega Sentinel and Count Nefaria, and that primarily works with you being able to dash to your own corner, and then when Dust rushes in at you, you dex and punish it with a light. I believe the technique was called banking, so you kind of bank or push yourself off against your wall, and then you are in position to be able to strike them with your light attack. It takes a bit of practice. If you guys want, I can maybe make a video on, technique as in general that works with against a ton of champions. And yeah, Ironheart can do it, very simply too. So Manthing, it's a Cassie Lang fight for me, but in general you do want to either be Nullify immune, Buff immune, or Poison immune as a minimum. Deathless She-Hulk is great, Count Nefaria can do that fight, Sandman, Anti-Venom, Omega Sentinel as well, but my choice was Cassie. Then Havok, and Havok you just want tech champions with multiples of armor up buffs, because every time Havok is going to activate a special attack, and he will, that means he's going to inflict an armor break on you. Additionally, he will eventually go unblockable in that fight, so you will have to rely on intercepts, and that means likely he will be activating his level 1s, and plasma feedback could give you trouble. Ironheart with Rapture pre-fight is great for that fight. Keep in mind, you do want the Rapture pre-fight. And then Omega Sentinel can do that fight great, because, she can get up to 10 armor ups. Just do not mess up and rely on auto block, because if you do, the fight's gonna end quick. And then we have Red Skull as well, because Red Skull obviously gains plenty of armor ups, and it's fairly easy. A note there is trying to be fast and aggressive in order to make sure that you do not lose your armor ups, I suppose. Other than that, Northstar, it's kind of annoying. He can special spam like crazy. I heard that fight goes quite well with Red Skull. Infamous Iron Man. I'm just going to change the text to Infamous Iron Man. Infamous Iron Man, Red Skull, Rocket works. Omega Sentinel is quite good for that fight, so here, and Cassie too. That's actually a very cheesy fight. It's Cassie. It's a bit tricky. You do have to be quite decently good at playing Cassie to pull that off. Then we have Mangog, and that's the aspect of evolution. You do have Indestructible 3 boost in that fight, so you can just kind of push him to level 3 and then tank it. Can be quite helpful. Luke Cage works great for it. Then you obviously have Cassie and Silk and Nefarious, Sandman and Deathless She-Hulk as well. Then Bullseye. He doesn't have tactics, so that makes him a lot easier. Ironheart's very good because you do not take bleed damage and blocks if he has that marked passive, as in you have 5 debuffs on him. And Polka Dot Power Incinerate works perfect with Ironheart as well. Lady Deathstrike's perfectly capable of doing that fight. Negasonic Teenage Warhound, Weapon X, Iceman. Since it is not a tactic fight, you just basically kind of need, ideally bleed immunity or, excellent tankiness. And obviously you do want to have access to dots. And then let Polka Dot kind of work in your favor and play fairly slowly. And Destroyer, again, has a ton of options. Haven't listed them all. Main thing is you do want to avoid having buffs on your champion, because otherwise you're going to take rupture damage. And then depends which tactic you use. But since the attack tactic, the Secutor, applies that heal block and takes away most of opponent's power gain, that level 2 is, nowhere near as scary. And, champions like Cassie, Spider Pig, Spider Ham will go great. Obviously, we have Silk, Deathless She-Hulk should be good too. Deathless She-Hulk. So that's not too bad at all. So this is what I used for each of these. Cassie was an absolute MVP. It's actually a very fun video coming up. But obviously there are other options that you have ranked that are more suited for you. Left side is, we're not going to go over White Tiger and Dust anymore, or Bullseye and Destroyer. We'll talk about Agent Venom, Maestro, Attuma and Annihilus a bit. And these actually kind of have less counters that do really good. And thank God they are not under a tactic, because Agent Venom is fine. Agent Venom, you can just, use a whole bunch of different champions. The fight in itself is not too hard. He will have those regions if you dash back too much, and he's going to shrug off your debuff. So, most of the solid mutants will do well there. Then we have Maestro, which does have Rich Get Richer. And, he's going to be kind of special spammy. I use Chavez just to return, reverse that Rich Get Richer basically, and special attacks do damage just fine, so it was a major issue. I've seen people use Sinister for it. Isophene apparently works quite well too. I'm sure there are plenty of other options that you are willing to fit on your team. It's basically Rich Get Richer Maestro for most part. Attuma is actually quite interesting here because he does not have a great deal of good counters. You can obviously always kind of tank Attuma's damage back if you choose to do so, but from his standard counters, only Onslaught really works that well, from most common ones, and Absman. He does have that energy resist node where he regens back all energy damage, and if it's specific type of dot, he gets a massive power gain. So you do want to avoid energy damage champions, basically. Avoid energy damage champions, especially energy dot. Now Onslaught is kind of an exception to that, because obviously Onslaught does have a lot of energy damage, but his degen is not energy damage. So what you do in that fight is you fight him normally, you get to your level 2, you drop that, and your degen's gonna do regular damage, and you're gonna be fine. He's not gonna get any extra power. Annihilus is straightforward. It's Ebb and Flow Intercept and Sadist, basically. Ebb and Flow Intercept, it just means you need to be able to intercept him fairly well. Absman destroys that fight. Isophene deals with the Onslaught great too, and I use Chavez, but for the most part you can use just about any champion. And what you want to do is block his special 1 hits, and then you're kind of free to punish his special just by dashing forward. Here, the best reminder would be, if you remember that EOP Annihilus, where we had to parry the special attack hits, if you were close enough to him, you had the room and space to punish and just run in. So you do have longer opening than you think. It's another thing that maybe you would need to practice, but basically you can just block the level 1 hits, and without dashing back, immediately rush into punish. And then it's quite easy. And then afterwards you can go in for your intercept, do the damage, and be happy boy or girl. Don't know who's watching. And then we have Bullseye and Destroy again. So at the bottom here, I drop down again attack and defensive tactic picture from the previous season. So these are the champions you're going to be largely looking at for when you do need a tactic champion. Echo cards, people still use Spider-Man 2099. If you do have one, he can work quite decently on the right side. Still can be quite great. I have actually seen some people use Yondu, which is quite crazy, but fine. I heard some people bring in Sentinel too. You know, once you kind of ramp up, you can start debuff spamming, and your level 1 has plenty of debuffs and your heavy attacks do, so Sentinel can potentially be used here. So yeah, obviously Red Skull, Ironheart's like one of the more popular choices, Lady Deathstrike. Here in the science, again, we do have Leader, if you're good with Leader. But yeah, these are the more popular champions that I have heard. Again, these are by no means only champions, because I haven't tested everything and I can't potentially know all the proper matchups. But that is also why I kind of try to break down the fights a bit for you. And let me know what you end up using, if you're already done with it, or if you decide to come back and let me know after your run how did it go. But meanwhile, I hope this video has even been remotely useful to you guys, and I'll see you after today. I'm burning that midnight fuel again. It's like coming on, well, it's past 1 a.m. here, so a bit sleepy. See you soon, guys. Bye bye. Hello there, guys, and welcome back to the channel. So we have all the information about the next